in order to support others. But the truth is the same. There is no difference. Yes. But on the way, of course, of benefiting others, when you try to realize the truth, of course, there are certain factors that you need to know more. You know, it's like I don't know if it's the right way to put it, and I don't know if I will anger fathers and mothers, but in some ways, the Bodhisattva way is like somehow being a mother, let's say, in a way. That normally, as a human being, you need to know what you need for yourself in order to survive, in order to continue your life, in order to sustain everything. So, let's say in that regard, you need to know what's best for you. You need to know all the things that will help you. But in the case of a mother, let's say, or we can put it generally, parents, in their case, not only they have to know that for themselves, they have to know the same thing for their children. So in doing so, they have to learn some things extra, actually. So it's not exactly, although it's the same, as I said, the same truth, but nevertheless, the knowledge, it's the same knowledge, but you need something extra also. Because certain things you cannot communicate with your children completely because of first of all, their age, first of all, their experience, and so on. So therefore, you need to learn even more ways to be able to truly benefit them, meaning learn more, acquire more means, acquire more different kinds of mediums to be able to relate to them, to be able to truly support them. So somehow it's like the Bodhisattva's way is that it's almost a way of becoming a parent, let's say, becoming parents. So that's why it would sometimes in the scriptures, well, not sometimes, but in the scriptures, it presents that for a Bodhisattva one needs to know not only the essence, for example, like the Dharmakaya, but one also needs to acquire the means to gather the other two kayas, Sambhogakaya and Nimanakaya forms, because those are like mediums. You need those mediums to be able to relate to an infant, to be able to relate to someone who has reached puberty, someone who's reached adolescence, and so on and so forth. So therefore you need all these mediums. And so these two kayas are basically like mediums. So therefore, that's just, of course, a very colloquial, a very practical way of brushing through these points. But what we really need to do is we need to take time to understand what kind of basically where these bodhisattvas are coming from. So then we rejoice in the activities of the bodhisattvas for their qualities, for their heart. In short, one could say for their courage, because it's a tremendous courage, because it's not just parenting a few, but parenting all. And that's something that we cannot imagine, yes? I mean, we can imagine to some extent. For example, we have presidents, prime ministers nowadays. According to our modern society, they are supposed to be like our parents, yes? So, just sort of without focusing on any other political issues, but just trying to relate to them as a parent on that ground alone, we can actually sort of imagine how much of a challenge there is actually, how much of a responsibility there is, because they really have to try to use every means that they have in their disposal. They hardly have any time for themselves, forget their family, but even for themselves. And day in, day out, they actually have to parent everyone. Yes. So sometimes they have to be tough, sometimes they have to be kind, and so on. So we can relate. There are some sort of relatable examples. Yes. But Bodhisattvas, their way of parenting is something that we cannot imagine. We cannot imagine even on a conceptual level. It's just almost illogical as a thing. And probably that's one thing that we might have to try and understand. Earlier I said that the way we have to approach the Buddha Dharma is that we have to approach it in an organic way and not really in a mechanical way. And the organic way meaning that almost, if you really look at how organic, for example, plants grow, let's say, they grow actually almost without any system, without really a reason. Yes, they grow almost according to what is really needed, what is most essential. So it's almost illogical in a way, you know. So therefore, the kind of, let's say, the one way of defining Bodhisattva's quality would be, or their courage would be to say that it's some sort of a illogical way of actually parenting, almost without reason or reasonless. I hope I didn't confuse all of you and the translators. And so now the last one, and with gladness I rejoice in the ocean of virtue for developing an awakening mind that wishes all beings to be happy, as well as in the deeds that bring them benefit. So mainly rejoicing in the, one could say, the bodhicitta itself, and the quality itself, or one could say it's the result, or the result meaning the accomplishment, and the accomplishments of every realization, meaning when we talk about Bodhisattva's qualities, we often define it by their stages. That's why we have first bhumi, second bhumi, and so on. So therefore, according to their stage of qualities, and we are able to define what kind of Bodhisattvas they are, and all of those are able to really refuge those needed sentient beings, like ourselves. And each of the quality is almost immeasurable actually. We cannot count them by numbers, or we cannot not count them by size, we cannot count them by any measuring tool. And so therefore they are immeasurable tools, immeasurable results that knows no limit basically. So therefore we rejoice in all the aspects of the realizations, of course. The final being that of the complete enlightenment, where there is no beginning, there is no end in terms of its activity. So, having rejoiced, then, as I said earlier, we accumulate immense merit and wisdom. Then it is followed by turning the wheel of dharma. Turning the wheel of dharma is again another great way to accumulate merit and wisdom. To me personally, this particular practice defines the gentleman nature, let's say, of a Buddha. Although, of course, the enlightened state has no gender, of course. So maybe we can say the gentlemanness or the ladyshipness, of the Buddha. So, because a Buddha is so decent, so proper, so noble, that unless we ask for help, and that they would not presume to know everything, although they know everything, somehow, and oppose their will and their wishes. So therefore, there were many cases in the past where, prior to Buddha Shakyamuni, if you think in a sort of a linear time frame, if not, then in other worlds, there are cases, and there were cases where when someone becomes a fully enlightened being, there were cases where others somehow, due to tight schedule maybe, due to certain reasons, that they were not able to ask the Buddha basically to turn the wheel of Dharma, basically to teach the Dharma. And so therefore there were cases where sometimes after being enlightened, after 3 days, they enter into Parinirvana, and that's it. And no one would know that actually there was a Buddha. And as a result, then such universes are they live out their lifespan, what is known as a dark age or a dark era or dark eon, basically, because there is no Buddha Dharma. So compared to that, of course, we are very fortunate, because upon the arrival of Buddha Shakyamuni, and then immediately the very first were, I think, the worldly, one of the celestial beings became our ambassador, and had come down from heaven to earth, and asked the Buddha Shakyamuni to turn the wheel of Dharma. And from there onwards, then as a result, we have all of these precious gifts, precious jewels. And therefore our age, although our land is not a pure land, it's an impure land, nevertheless our age, our era, our eon is that of an enlightened eon. So therefore we are very fortunate. So now that we have the chance, then we also learn the ways of the Bodhisattvas, where we ask the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to turn the wheel of Dharma always, so that all sentient beings benefit from it. So to explain that, it says, with folded hands I beseech the Buddhas of all directions to shine the lamp of Dharma for all bewildered in misery's gloom. With folded hands I beseech the conquerors who wish to pass away. Oh, sorry, that's the other one. And the other translation says, and so I join my hands and pray the Buddhas who reside in every quarter, kindle now the Dharma's light for those who grope, bewildered in the dark of pain. Chonam kunji sanje la talmo jarte solwa ne semjen dungal mentum la choji dume partu sor. So of course it's put in a very poetic manner, stating that the dharma is very much like it resembles the light, resembles to a light, where the darkness or shadows of karma and klesha are removed when the light of dharma shines. So therefore, we ask the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas fervently, physically by folding our hands, and with speech, with perfect speech, with pure speech, we ask them to turn the wheel of Dharma. But most importantly, we ask the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas with pure intention, with perfect intention. As always, the intention is that for the sake of all sentient beings. It's not just to sort of learn the truth in general, but to learn the truth for the sake of all sentient beings. So for that, the light of Dharma is absolute. It's an absolute necessity. The next, I rejoin my hands beseeching the enlightened ones who wish to pass into nirvana. Do not let us, wandering in blindness, stay among us for unnumbered ages. With folded hands, I beseech the conquerors who wish to pass away to please remain for countless eons and not to leave the world in darkness. Gyalwa nyangin dajela tammo jalde sowane rondo dongbur mingo jinkawa tamme jupar sol. I think it's pretty simple to understand that it's more or less the same, of course, asking them to remain and asking them to turn the wheel of Dharma. But nevertheless, the Bodhisattvas practice encourages elaborate activities. Why? Because we must find every little mean. We must turn every little moment, every little circumstance into a pure one. So that's why, although one could be very practical and say, oh, they're more or less the same, so therefore we can say 6 branches. But no, they would make it complicated, so that we will be able to use every moment in a pure way. So similarly, we ask the Buddhas to remain in the world. Again, the story goes that even our Buddha Shakyamuni, he said 3 times actually during his last years. I think that time he must have been 83. Yes, so must have been around 84 then. So he had said that, of course, his closest attendant being his, I think, cousin brother, Ananda. And he said from time to time that a Bodhisattva, or basically he said, a being who has accumulated such merits and such wisdom is able to somehow bless this physical body to remain for eons, because they have accomplished that kind of auspicious connection. they have gathered those auspicious requirements, one could say. So he said it once, he said it twice, and for the last time he said it again, and each time somehow Ananda was either distracted or didn't really understand the meaning, of course. Every time Buddha says something, he listened, of course, with respect, with folded hands, and he said, "Oh, great, wonderful, oh Buddha." And then he went about his business to beg for alms and so on. So therefore, by the third time, actually sort of prior to the third message of the Buddha, it is said that the very being who has the merit to govern the desire realm, sometimes known as Mara. Often I don't like to sort of depict or describe the Mara too much, because then suddenly it looks like there is an absolute evil and there is an absolute savior and so on. So not to give that kind of wrong impression, I often don't say it, but since our mind is capable of creating anything in a way, meaning that there is no limit to our imagination, that if you acquire the means, meaning merit, you can accomplish, or you can accomplish in terms of governing whatever you want in a way. So, looks like some may have made the wish, made the aspirations, and accumulated enough merit to be able to govern the whole desire realm. So it's basically like the president of desire realm. So the president of the desire realm came down from his palace and then asked the Buddha, of course, they had great respect for each other. So he also said, "Oh great Buddha, I think you have remained enough in this world, and you have disrupted most of my plans. So therefore now I humbly ask you to decline and take a holiday, basically." So of course, actually earlier there were several times that he had also asked, but each time somehow Buddha kind of avoided any answer. But by the third time, meaning by the third time when Ananda didn't really participate in asking Buddha to remain, and then Buddha thought that probably, Buddha realized that there is no real reason, or there is no real karma basically for the sentient beings for him to remain. Not that Buddha didn't know earlier and later he researched and found out, but somehow he had already understood all along that the last deed of the 12 is actually a must, because otherwise sentient beings would develop a kind of, I don't know if it's the right word, some sort of nostalgia, some sort of a wrong impression that there is actually a creator, that there is an almighty, that there is an all-knowing, all-omniscient divinity who is eternal. So to defeat the idea of eternalism, that he realized that from the very beginning that the 12th deed is a must. He realized that fact very well. But just like I said before, compassion is illogical. Bodhicitta is illogical in a way, that out of that illogicalness, and then he asked Ananda 3 times, basically, and that sort of indirectly saying that a Buddha can remain forever, actually, if he wishes to. But somehow, of course, Ananda sort of proved that no, this is not going to be beneficial. So therefore, he actually accepted the wishes of the Mara, the president of the galaxy, the president of the desire realm. And then he only blessed his body, his physical body, Buddha's physical body, to remain for 3 more months, I think. So during that time, then Buddha gave his final teachings and then displayed the parinirvana. So in our case, basically what we are trying to do is following the footsteps of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, which is to be illogical. We know that almost all Buddhas would not really remain their physical body. That basically they will guide and benefit sentient beings in various ways, but to remain their physical body is something that often they do not encourage, because then it becomes very difficult to make others understand the impermanence of life, the impermanence nature. However, now that we have some concepts, we can understand some of its logic, but nevertheless, as I said, we try to be illogical just like them, and we ask them to remain. We ask them to remain forever, as long as there are sentient beings. We ask them to turn the wheel of dharma and guide us all the way. We are debating whether Buddha lived for 80 years or 84 years. Now the last one is, the last branch is that of dedication. Thus, by the virtue collected through all that I have done, may the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. Through these actions now performed and all the virtues I have gained, may all the pain of every living being be wholly scattered and destroyed. 대다른 드다 군지대 개와다게 사바칸 티네 semjen 탐지지 동한 탐지 사와쇼. I think I've mentioned probably yesterday that every aspect of practice practice of the Buddha Dharma is virtuous in the beginning, virtuous in the middle, virtuous at the end. And the practice of dedication shows just that, the virtuous at the end part. That once you have gathered all of those means, all of those merits, wisdoms, finally what do you do with it? Often, in our often most sentient beings, once you have that much of merit, either they become lost, they are in awe of all that merit, don't know what to do with it, and spend it on unnecessary things. And before you know it, you are bankrupt again. So, whereas in this case, one actually deposits it. Basically, a wise person would, if you win a lottery, let's say, almost, normally the wisest thing to do is deposit them, a long deposit. If you do that, then it will secure your life in a way. But often we don't do that, we just blow them away. So, in the same way, one deposits these merit. But of course, again, the whole depositing act, and one could say almost like the bank, the type of bank that we choose is a very unique one. We deposit in the actually bank of all sentient beings. And we deposit also with the intention that it is for them, it is for their benefit. And as a result, then almost like the irony of it is that you in fact accumulate even more merit actually. So it's the smartest way of investing, one could say. So in here, one wholeheartedly offers every merit that you've gained, every wisdom that you've gained, not just in this life, not just in a few rebirths in the past, but from all the rebirths, however there were many. Not to complicate ourselves saying that from such and such time, but just by being practical and to say that we offer the merits that we've gained from the timeless rebirths that we have experienced, and offer them wholeheartedly to all sentient beings. And now, I think the coming 3 verses or 4 verses describes how do I say this? A practical guideline, yes. Like one thing that comes to my mind is dedication for dummies, you know. So, meaning that if we really don't know where to dedicate, because to all sentient beings sounds great, but what does that mean? Yes? So, in order to sort of clarify that doubt, then he uses, the author himself uses a few examples. May I be the doctor, the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. May a rain of flood and drink descend. Sorry. My English punctuation is not good. There are similar stories in Tibetan as well. Maybe you've learned a few when you were learning Tibetan. Did you? About the message between a mother and a son about their yaks, 5 yaks actually. No. Basically, it was a very simple message. All the mother wanted to know was that, how are you? Are you well? Because he was far away from home, herding the yaks, basically. Actually, there were not so many. He had only 5 yaks to herd. So that was it. And then he replied, of course, also because those days it's not that, basically papers are not that plenty. So you have to make best use of what space you have left. So he replied, and either it is due to the lack of paper, or maybe due to the lack of punctuation. Mainly, of course, the story is about punctuation. So when he read, it sounded like as if said that I'm hurt, but I'm not painful, you know. And actually, they had a yak which had a white tail, and he meant to say that actually, but from the yaks, actually, the one with the white tail passed away. But when you have wrong punctuation, it sounded just like as if all 5 yaks passed away, you know. So, if you understood Tibetan, you would laugh more. So therefore, it sounded very strange when I said, "May a rain of flood and drink descend." So what I meant to say was, may a rain of flood and drink descend to clear away the pain of thirst and hunger. And during the eon of famine, may I myself change into food and drink. May I become an inexhaustible treasure for those who are poor and destitute. May I turn into all things they could need and be placed close beside them. So these are the few examples that he's giving. If you don't know to what to dedicate, let's say. So within a desire realm, often, better to say, unlike the celestial realms that of what is known as form realms and formless realms and so on, considered as celestial realms, our desire realm has everything. It's rich, fertile with confusion, dukkha, very vivid dukkha. Whereas in the celestial realms, there's just some nightmares, maybe. When they meditate for eons, sometimes they have some wrong imaginations, but otherwise, whereas in the desire realm, you have vivid experience of pain, of dukkha, meaning all 3 forms of sufferings or confusion are very apparent, very vivid. So, therefore, Bodhisattvas who dedicate their merit to be able to, to clear all those forms of dukkha, basically. So therefore, within the desire realm, we have untimely death, we have aging, we have illnesses, plagues, war, famine, hunger, all these forms. And so therefore, he meaning the author, Bodhisattva Shantideva, then shows us certain examples in terms of knowing the aim, in terms of our dedication, so that we are able to dedicate to those who are sick, to those who are hungry, to those who are poor, and to those who are under pain from all forms of war also, wars and battles. Of course, in most of the commentaries, it's some of the examples that are given are that of the what is known as the last stages of the Kali Yuga, or end of time, one could say. Apocalypse, 7 trumpets, Armageddon, whatnot, you know. But basically, it is said that the eon, our world sort of goes through sort of various stages of eons, a certain stage where it reaches its peak of society, and at a stage where it goes through the rock bottom of the society, one could say. So it is said that we are sort of close to hitting rock bottom. And when in the midst of that a stage of complete degenerate state, then it is said that one would experience extreme famine, extreme hunger, and there will be sort of almost a global pains, and, like hunger and war on a global scale. So therefore, Bodhisattva Shantideva dedicates all his merits and shows us that we should also dedicate the same to all those whoever will experience those stages. But of course, unlike other interpretations, these stages of the eon, they sort of fluctuate. They go up and down. There's no real end to it because it's samsara. Yes. So then I think it's quite easy to understand the direct meanings of the verses. Nrowa neba jisitu nesu joje bardane mendam memba nyedadan Thaye neo jebrasho sedang komji charpabde tedang kombi dunghal sal mugi karba pamense dana sedang komdo jur semjim ponshin ulwala dana mize terjudi yoje kogun hazosu nduna nyevra negirji 류당 대신 롱제다 두숨 개와 탐제장 semjin kunji dandrubjir pongba bradang waja. Without any sense of loss, I shall give up my body and enjoyments, as well as all my virtues of the 3 times, for the sake of all benefiting. What? For the sake of benefiting all. Yes. My body thus, and all my goods besides, and all my merits gained and to be gained, I give them all, and do not count the cost to bring about the benefit of beings. By giving up all, sorrow is transcended, and my mind will realize the sorrowless state. It is best that I now give everything to all beings in the same way as I shall at death. Nirvana is attained by giving all. Nirvana is the object of my striving, and all must be surrendered in a single instant. Therefore, it is best to give it to all others. Okay. Very good. So then the last verse, probably that's the last of the dedication. But basically sort of more than that, it gives the reason or practical reasons why we should, why it's logical actually, why it's logical to be illogical. Probably that's one way of putting it. Meaning that dedicating is illogical to all of us, because all our life we strive to acquire all kinds of means, and suddenly this particular spirituality says, give it away, dedicate it. So therefore it's illogical in a way. So now it's, as I said, Shantideva was providing the logic and saying that there is logic, and it is logical to be illogical. So since we ourselves, no matter what, no matter how much we try to earn wealth, comfort, luxury, survival kits or means, that sooner or later it all dissolves, it all goes away, almost like taken away, let's say, by the force of life in a way. So therefore, since that is the case, since that is apparent, that it is most wise, and almost in a sort of question saying, isn't it not wise? While you have the chance, while you can actually give it away with consciously. Right now you have the chance to give it away consciously and turn that fact of having to leave everything into something beneficial, meaning that you can actually do something with it. So therefore, why not dedicate it all now? That it's actually more logical. Of course, having said that, we don't really have to take it literally right now and sort of abandon everything, let's say. He had said this to get ourselves motivated, to get the gist, so that we don't really pay so much priority in terms of acquiring means for just not so wise reasons, let's say. So maybe we'll be able to do that, and I think that's the last verse for today, and we will continue from there. And the few other verses will sort of create the basis to generate bodhicitta. And as a part of practice, of course, today, now after this, we will all be practicing Chenrezig, meditating together, which is very profound. But at the same time, as I said yesterday, I don't know if I said it yesterday, but nevertheless, we must practice in every way. Meaning that we must rely ourselves on practices, such profound practices like that of guru yogas and wisdom aspects. At the same time, we should also see these scriptures, see these teachings also as practice, equally, not differentiate them. So meaning that when I say practice regularly and practice hard, I don't really mean to say just practice this, Meaning that every opportunity you get, one must pay the same emphasis in learning these scriptures as well, and then put them into practice, because they are actually inseparable, they are synonymous. Sometimes, of course, depending on the circumstances, depending on the individual, maybe for some, a formal meditation is more beneficial. For some, going through the scriptures might be more beneficial. That's an individual thing. But overall, we must know the balance. We must know that we must practice both, actually, so that we have complete nourishment. because this will give you the reasons, the logics of why you need to practice, and the other a formal sort of routine, a formal rhythm. So therefore, if you go through both, it's most beneficial. So today, I would like you to sort of focus at the end of the session, then focus on the meanings of what Shantideva had described. See how meaningful they are. See how, see if they are, see if they basically mean anything. You know, in general, to see if it means anything. And I'm sure that you will find that it means a lot. So then, from there, then try to apply as much as one can. Thank you.